Hello, everyone, and welcome to our newest presentation with Nanda Journeys. This time, talking about mental health journey to Colombia with Dr. Tom Barrett and Dr. Tammy Lyn. We're so excited to be joining with that to have them join us to talk about this amazing journey to Colombia. But before we get to all the details, a little bit of housekeeping here. Everyone on this webinar is recorded, is muted. But that doesn't mean we don't want your questions. We absolutely do. So what you want to do is if you have questions throughout this conversation, we want them. We want to be able to infuse them into our conversation. Please click on the chat button or the Q&A button. If you don't see it, you can click on those three dots under more and then click on Q&A and put your questions in the chat. We'll be happy to get to them throughout our conversation. Also, this webinar is being recorded. So if you do have to step away or if you have a traveler you want to go with who wants to join you, please know that we'll be sending out the recording. You can share that with them post-webinar. And with that being said, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host, the founder of Nanda Journeys, and a good friend of mine, Nicola Balmain. She'll be joining us on this conversation as well as Dr. Tom Barrett and Dr. Tammy Lyn. But before we get into that, Nicola, tell us a little bit about, for those that are new, a little bit about Nanda Journeys, who we are, and why we're so good at what we do.
Well, of course, we love talking travel. So hello, everybody from the northwest of England, where I'm currently traveling and spending time with family and exploring new things for our Nanda family. So first of all, thank you, Michael, for opening up such a warm introduction. And I want to say a warm welcome to everybody that's joining us this afternoon. If you have been part of Nanda Journeys before, thank you so much for being part of the Nanda family. If you are new to Nanda Journeys, welcome. We consider ourselves family here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But Nanda Journeys was founded in 2015 after People to People closed. And many of you will be familiar with that long legacy, and we'll talk to Tammy's legacy with People to People here shortly. But I loved really connecting people and the power of connection, the power of people, the power of learning from each other. And I couldn't foresee doing anything else, honestly, other than that kind of travel. So we decided to start our own company, Nanda Journeys, and we've evolved this Nanda way in 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years since we've been doing this, but many people, this was not something that Michael and I designed or our team designed. You, our Nanda travelers, Tom, Tammy, all of your alumni, they kept coming back to us and saying they loved the Nanda way. And for us, the Nanda way was just organic. It's what we did. But what we've come to realize is it has power, it has impact, and that makes us like so very happy. We like to do everything with purpose to have a local impact. That's our main purpose of Nanda Journeys, is having an impact on the people that travel, having an impact on the communities you visit, and making sure that everything we do on your behalf is local. So we stay in bespoke hotels, we eat at local restaurants, we have family dinners. So everything we do is very purposeful. We do it with a little passion,
Yeah.
if that isn't obvious. So welcome everybody to the Nanda family.
Yeah, and I love about Nanda Journeys is the fact that you can still be purposeful, can still do create an impact in the destinations you visit, but that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice or it's still a very comfortable and awesome experience. Tell us a little bit about what's included in every Nanda journey, especially this one to Colombia.
Yeah, well, we try and make it all inclusive so you don't really have to think too much about it. Your thought process should be, do I want to go to Colombia? Do I want to go with Dr. Barrett? And do I want to go next February? So that's all you need to think about. We'll take care of the rest. We have a national guide with you that is a Colombian guide that stays with you the whole time. 4 or 5 star accommodations. So we're staying in nice boutique hotels that are going to be comfortable for you in good locations that have a little bit of a history with the place you're visiting. We include many meals, but also have options for you to dine by yourself. You know that you want to explore independently, and that's all great. But all your transportation is included. We do provide airfare as well if you want that. And then we provide porterage and local guides and people to infuse stories about the learning, and of course the peer-to-peer engagement that we're going to talk about as well. So we take care of everything, and if there's something else you want us to take care of, we're here for you too.
Yeah, and there's so much in every journey that's included. I think the most important thing that's included are our journey hosts because they add so much to the intricate details. I know Tom as well as Tammy are not strangers to the Nanda Journey family. But can you just introduce Tom real quick? I know Tom has a lot of accolades. I myself don't like talking about my own accolades. So if you want to just introduce Tom, that would be great.
Well, Dr. Tom Barrett, dear friend of Nanda Journeys, and has been leading these delegations to focus on mental health globally for many years. Tom is actually leading his last delegation, so we're celebrating and thanking him for being such a beacon of hope and leadership internationally. Yes, he has a very accomplished career within the United States, a Professor Emeritus at the University of Denver. And that's who we collaborate with, or rather, Tom collaborates with to get your continuing education credits. But he served as a mental health director for the state of Colorado for many, many years. And he's a wealth of knowledge working with the World Health Organization. The main thing I want you to know about Tom is he leads with heart, right? So when he's in these countries, he's leading a conversation that he knows will be impactful both for the people joining. So there'll be learning opportunities, there'll be peer engagement, but there's impact where he is. So he's always looking for and always sponsoring the opportunity to support the people, whether it be in, Tanzania or South Africa or Argentina or Tom, you've been to a host of countries. Tell us where your favorite journey was and why you've been coming back to lead these international journeys with us for so long. And you have my deepest gratitude for being a great leader.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola and Michael and Tammy and everybody that supports these trips. They really have been wonderful experiences. So it's actually my 13th trip. The first one was, of course, under People of People to China.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember, but we like to keep the group small.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very personal. We had 50 on the group to China.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
No, no, and it was probably too many, but I can tell you, and that was almost all people from Colorado because everybody wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an example of how interesting these trips are. It's a great opportunity to look at the mental health system, talk with mental health professionals in countries. Um, I always learn something that they do better than what we do in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And we're often able to provide some suggestions on things they might be able to do. In some of the countries we go to, they don't have many psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
So in Myanmar, for example, they wanted to set up a program for psychologists. So we made some suggestions about how we could do that. Tammy was helpful in that endeavor as well. So these are really a great opportunity to talk about mental health system and mental health issues around the world and how we can do a better job of providing services for people around the world. And that's my passion, and I know it is for people in each of these groups and for Nanda Journeys as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of my favorite trip, you're putting me on the spot here, Nicola.
It's always better to do that.
Yeah, so between Nanda Journeys and WHO, I've worked in over 30 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So they each have, a special place. And, the last one we took to Tanzania was certainly one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also worked in Liberia a lot through the Carter Center and WHO. So we didn't take a professional trip there, but that was a very interesting country as well. So South Africa was interesting, Rwanda was interesting, India, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Cuba, Iceland, Morocco. I think I covered them all.
I think you got there. So, like me, pretty much everywhere you go is your next favorite place.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you for your leadership. It's really, really is something special. And we're handing the torch, or rather, you're handing the torch to a very, very wonderful kind of successor to your international leadership. Might I ask you to talk about Dr. Tammy Lyn? You've traveled together many times and know each other professionally. So, um, I'd love you to talk a little bit about this wonderful lady taking up the leadership torch.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to do that. And I consider Tammy a close friend as well as a professional colleague.
Hmm.
And Tammy has a great history of in a variety of different settings, including the Nanda journey trips. I think, Tammy, you said you were on 6 or 7 trips with me.
Colombia will be my eighth with you. I just wrote them all down.
Wow, great, great. So Tammy has over 25 years leading in high intensity correctional settings. She was a warden, which is unusual for a psychologist, but also a good thing for a psychologist, I think, to be
Hmm.
in that kind of position. Executive coach for leaders in high stake roles, PhD and master's in psychology from the University of Michigan, APA board member and fellow. And you were on the board up until a couple years ago, I think, weren't you?
Yes, I served a 3-year term that ended in 2023. So
Okay,
serving APA in other ways now, but no longer
great.
a board member. Mhm.
So, board certified in organizational and business consulting, and author of The Surprising Journey from Psychologist to Warden, drawing on her experience in correctional settings. So, really glad that Tammy is able to kind of pick up the torch and continue these wonderful trips.
Yeah, and welcome, Tammy. We're so grateful to you. And obviously, you have that great experience of your what will be eighth journey leading these professional programs. So, thank you so much for being part of the team.
It's my pleasure. Mhm.
And this journey isn't just a normal cultural trip. Obviously, we get a chance to see all the amazing sights, all the amazing experience, the culture, taste the amazing food that Colombia offers. But this is also a career enrichment journey. So, obviously, people go to Colombia because they want to see the people, they want to experience the culture. But this also adds an additional aspect which allows them to enrich their career through connections, through continuing education. Nicola, tell us a little bit about your what the career development includes, but also Tom and Tammy, you've led multiple of these. Where do you guys kind of see the value and why do you continue to keep going? So I'll let you explain what it is, Nicola, and I'd love to hear from Tom and Tammy what your kind of thoughts are in regards to why it's such a valuable way to see the world.
Yeah, no, our passion really is in connecting people, as I mentioned a short while ago, and there's nothing more powerful than connecting people that have expertise in the same field. So we welcome people from the mental health community, but also, Tammy was a warden, and of course, yes, she's working in the mental health capacity, but we have people from other fields that join these delegations, whether they're in healthcare. We've even had people that are involved in end of life care and things like that. So there are lots of different interprofessional kind of connections on why you would want to learn about mental health or healthcare delivery in another country. So we create opportunities for you to meet with government officials or professors or psychologists and psychiatrists, people in the community that have been impacted, and we'll talk a little bit about why Colombia is important in a different way from that perspective. But we're providing credits through the support of Tom and Denver University, so 7 CE credits. So of course that's really important. And I'll invite Tammy to talk a little bit about you traveled with people to people. You were just telling me, Tammy, as a student. So I would ask you to compare and contrast as a student traveling to now traveling as a professional. What do you get out of it, and why have you been coming back for so many years? I won't give the year away, but I'll let you talk about that.
I'm willing to give the year away. So my first connection to people was in 1988 when I joined a delegation of high school students uh, who traveled to China. So this was the year before Tiananmen. It
Mhm,
was a time when interest in relations between the US and China were really at one of its peaks.
mhm,
And it was an incredibly meaningful experience. We stayed with host families. We visited other students in schools around China and
mhm.
really just had such an eye-opening experience. I've traveled all my life. I'm really fortunate that I had a parent who worked for an airline when I was growing up. So we actually were able to travel a lot, and we were taught the value of being gracious visitors,
Mhm.
right? Of respecting our hosts, but also the learning opportunities that come from travel. And I'm just grateful that I've been able to continue that over the course of my life. I reconnected with People to People in 2014
Uh-huh.
when I received in the mail an announcement about a mental health journey to Cuba. So by this time, I had become a psychologist.
Mhm.
And this was a time when there was a small window of time when travel to Cuba was more open than it has been since. And I was able to see how a country with what we would perceive as very few resources
Mhm.
is able to make tremendous strides in preventive care and early childhood intervention, and how people were just being very, very creative and resourceful with the limited health resources that they had. So I think Cuba, I would say, is my favorite trip because it was my first as a
Yeah.
psychologist on these trips. And I come back from every trip first very grateful for the resources we have available to us in the United States, as flawed as they are. Always grateful with for what we have here, but also terribly impressed by how other systems, other countries are trying to expand access to care, trying to improve clinician training, and trying to destigmatize
Mhm.
help seeking. So
Mhm.
it's always deeply rewarding to go on these trips.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up Cuba, Tammy, because I think that was one of the most interesting trips. And it's a it's that was partly, I think, because we don't get a lot of good information about the Cuban mental health system
Right.
or the healthcare system in the US. And in fact, people tend to think that it's not a very sophisticated system. And
Mhm.
we learned that there are a lot of things they're doing better than we are in
Mhm.
the US. And in fact, when WHO last ranked healthcare systems around the world, Cuba and the United States were pretty much tied, I think 37th
Mm.
and 38th. So
Yeah.
not as high as we'd like to be, but they do, as you mentioned, a very good job with limited resources. And one of the things they do very well, I think, is integrating health and mental health, particularly in rural areas where while education is free, including medical school, the requirement is for physicians to spend time in rural settings and as well as doing international work. And I think that's helped their mental health system and helped them work with other countries around the world.
Yeah, and I love that you were just in Tanzania recently, and of course we're going to Colombia, and I think you wanted to share with people a little bit about your perspective about these three countries and how they compare and contrast. So I'll invite you to talk about why it's important to go to these locations, and again your learning opportunity, and these metrics are really they're important to understand, and I think you wanted to chat about them a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I do like to collect and share the information. This is all coming from the World Health Organization. And while I was there, I was very involved in collecting this information. I think while it doesn't give you everything you need to know about a country, it is a pretty good snapshot of what's going on from a mental health perspective. And of course, we know that Colombia has experienced a lot of violence
Mhm.
in its history, and certainly that has impacted people, and certainly it has raised a lot of mental health issues over the course, and we hope to be able to talk more about that.
Yeah.
But if you look at the population of Colombia, it's pretty much is close to what Tanzania is, and we'll see how there's differences in resources, mental health resources between the two countries. Of course, both countries are not as populous as the U.S.
Hmm.
And then when you look at mental hospitals, Tanzania has very few mental hospitals. We have a lot, and actually, Colombia has quite a few for the size of country it is. Um, Mental health outpatient attached to mental hospitals. This figure was kind of hard for me to believe, but Colombia is reporting over 7,000 mental health outpatient units attached to um, mental health. So I'm
Wow.
sometimes it's hard to figure out how they come up with that figure. I'm sure they're calculating that maybe in a little different way, but regardless, that's what they're reporting. Psychiatric units in general hospitals, in the US, we've gone in the direction of reducing mental hospitals and trying to get more hospitalizations in the community. In fact, when I was at WHO, the mental health director there said he wanted to get rid of countrywide mental hospitals entirely and wanted to go in the direction of psychiatric units in general hospitals. And I disagree with him a little bit on that. I think there's still a
Mhm.
role for psychiatric or mental hospitals in country, but um, in many countries that I've worked in, that's the only mental health they have is
Mhm.
a countrywide hospital.
Yeah.
Liberia, for example, there's very little in the community. There's one psychiatrist in the entire country for Liberia, for example. So that's a country where we'd certainly want more developed in the community.
Yeah.
Um, Community-based mental health. A lot of these figures we can't get from countries. The U.S. Even though the U.S. is very sophisticated in data collection, they're not reporting that, and Colombia isn't either. Mental hospitals bed per capita. So this is an interesting one. You can see that we still have more beds per capita than either of these countries, and there's probably not enough beds in Tanzania. When Tammy and I were there, we were working with them on building their resources, and they certainly need more in the community, but they probably need more beds than they have as well.
Now
Uh,
that I guess that's great. You do these journeys right for context, right? Because the figures
right,
themselves, they can be difficult to understand without the context and the conversation
Right.
that happens there. Because that number, that 7,882, I guess makes no sense. But through
right,
conversations, when you have those, you have an opportunity to pose the questions to the people that are in the field.
Right.
right. Well, so an interesting anecdote on that. When I was working for the World Health Organization, I was collecting some of this information. And one of the pieces of information we collect is how many people are served in the mental health system.
Hmm.
And Ukraine was reporting a higher rate than anybody in Europe.
Hmm.
And I went back to him and I said, "This has got to be wrong. You're higher than anybody else." Said, "No, that's right," because at the time they required people that are getting a driver's license to have an evaluation by
Oh,
a mental health
Huh.
professionals. And so you
interesting.
have to take these figures in context, but again,
Hmm.
it still gives you interesting information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah,
for that.
the next one is psychiatrists, and I think this is one of the more interesting ones. They do have more psychiatrists in Colombia than in Tanzania. Of course, not as many as we have in the US. But look at mental health nurses and psychologists. And of course, we know that there are a lot of psychologists in South America. And in fact, Argentina, I think, has more psychologists per capita than any country in the world.
Oh,
So that's interesting. When we were in Argentina, a lot of the psychologists there are doing psychoanalysis, which is interesting. In the US, psychologists, for the most part, don't do psychoanalysis unless they go through special training. A lot of it's done through psychiatrists, but so that's a different perspective. They do have a lot of mental health nurses, a lot of psychologists, more than we have per capita in the US. They don't have many social workers. They weren't reporting any on this. Um, and total mental health professionals, they're certainly better than Tanzania. So it's an example of, Africa doesn't have, for the most part, except in a few countries, South Africa is a little better, and some of the countries in northern, um, above sub-Saharan Africa are doing better, but most of the sub-Saharan countries have very few mental health professionals.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Disability life years, that's an indication of how they're impacted by mental health. And you can see Tanzania has a higher figure than Colombia, but not as high as the US.
Hmm.
The suicide rate is lower than it is in the US, although we have to say, in fairness, the way suicide is reported around the world varies tremendously.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when I was mental health director, Colorado was listed and still is as one of the highest suicide rates in the country. And when I talked to my colleagues on the East Coast, they said, well, it's really higher in these eastern states because religion is stronger here. And
Hmm.
with strong religious background, people don't want all the suicides to report as suicides. In fact, when I was growing up,
Hmm.
you weren't allowed to be buried in Catholic cemetery if you died by suicide.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Hmm.
well, it's probably not as big an issue as it is in the U.S. It's probably higher than what's reported there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots
And
to talk about when you head to Colombia. So let's.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's one of the things we like to talk with them about. These are some of the figures, and sometimes they disagree with them or have updated ones. They're surprised sometimes by some of these figures, but it is a good starting point for the conversation.
Absolutely. And there's
Thank
nothing
you.
like going to a destination to bring the numbers to life and really see the impact
Right,
in
exactly. Yeah.
person. So let's take a quick journey through Colombia.
Mhm.
The upcoming journey we're going on in February. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat in the Q&A. We'll be happy to get to them as we go through the conversation. But the journey departing February 25th to March 8th, 12 days, 11 nights featuring 23 meals. We arrive in the Bogota on the same day. A lot of times when you're traveling internationally, you're expecting an overnight flight. In this particular instance, there is no overnight flight. We are arriving in Bogota on the same day. We spend 3 nights in Bogota. From there, we fly to Medellin. We spend 4 nights in Medellin, and then from there we fly up to Cartagena. We spend 4 evenings in Cartagena before flying home. So we have an amazing journey ahead of us. Our first day is a flight from the USA to Colombia. We arrive in the beautiful city of Bogota. We check into our hotel this evening. It's kind of relaxing, although it's still the same day. It's been a long day. So we arrive at the hotel, we check in, we get a chance to relax before the next day, getting out and exploring the beautiful city of Bogota. Nicola, tell us a little bit about what we can expect on our first day in the beautiful country of Colombia.
Yeah, well, you're right. First and foremost, I know that Tom and Tammy have traveled far and wide. So one of the benefits of this journey is it really isn't that far away from the US. So flying from Miami, it really is a short flight. And then connecting from the rest of the United States, there are several opportunities to travel direct to Bogota now. So Bogota being the capital city, it's really important for us to orientate ourselves first and foremost to the culture of the country that we're visiting. So that will all take place on this day. And then you'll have a graffiti tour, which seems a little strange, but the graffiti tour, I've done it myself personally, and it's really profound. It tells you a lot about the politics, about the culture, about the history. So there was a lot of silent protesting done through graffiti, through the times of challenge and violence and everything. So really important to understand the history. And people use graffiti now as it's art. It's not considered graffiti as we know graffiti as tagging and ugly messes on the freeways and things like that. It's art and it's revered by everybody. And then the welcome dinner, one of your favorite things, and maybe Tom and Tammy, your favorite things too, is that coming together and everybody getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Right. Nicola, it's interesting. We just did a graffiti tour in Denver
Huh.
just to reinforce it is really high art. And it gave us, there was a good explanation about the people doing this artwork and the history that they've had in doing it. And it was really amazing. So I'm glad we included it here. It's a good way to understand about the culture.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating sidebar conversation for us, but I was just asking my daughter who's in Denver, why is this not becoming a tourism thing? Why is there not graffiti tours in Denver? So great to hear that there's graffiti tours happening in Denver.
There is, yes.
It's
We had
awesome.
a fantastic one. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and the welcome dinner provides us a great opportunity to meet one another. I always say when at the beginning of a journey, it's hard to get people to start talking. By the end of the journey, it's hard to get them to stop talking, to tell them what's coming up next. So this is a great place where the journey begins. The friendships are made. It's not necessarily the places that you go, but the people that you're with that's important as well. So the welcome dinner at a local restaurant provides that to be a great opportunity to meet your fellow colleagues before we have our first professional day of our amazing journey in Bogota. Tell us a little bit about what we can expect during this professional engagement day, Nicola.
And for those of you that are joining us for this conversation and you don't know how this works, so whilst we have a professional purpose statement that Tom has so eloquently written to create kind of a vision for what do we want to learn? What do we want our learning outcomes to be? Of course, it's going to be CE. So this has to be very, very structured. But what we don't do is tie ourselves too tightly to specific meetings this far out. We want to learn about you. We want to learn about your background, your expertise. What do you want to learn? What do you want to take away? And then based on the dynamic of the group, we will formulate a final schedule of professional engagements that are going to be most in alignment with the people that are going to be joining Tom and Tammy in Colombia. But activities that we've already penciled in are meeting with government officials, universities as well, to learn about what is the pathway to becoming qualified. Um, One of the important things on this particular delegation is community engagement. So meeting with nonprofit leaders and people in the field that are supporting people with mental health challenges as a result and consequence of some of the past history in Colombia that you'll also learn about. So today is dedicated for that. And then we don't want to forget that you should invite your fellow travel companions as well. So bring your travel companion, your spouse, your partner, your friend, because we have a wonderful guest program lined up for you. I'm squeezed in there somewhere in that little picture in the Emerald Workshop down in the bottom, but the Emerald Workshop is fascinating. So we know about coffee from Colombia, but did you know that almost 60 to 70% of the world's emeralds are exported from Colombia? So it's obviously a very, very important industry, and they make beautiful emeralds. You'll have an opportunity to have a workshop as one of the guests. And if, like me, you have this beautiful tiny little cutting of an emerald that you create and you want to make it into something beautiful, you can do that too. So we made a little necklace for our daughter in the workshop. And then have a cooking class. Always some of the highlights of some of the Nanda journeys that we do. You learn so much about food, culture, and what are the fashions around cooking, but what is the history around cooking? It tells us so many stories. So the guests are going to have a really interesting day while you professionals are engaging with your peers.
And
Yeah.
this is always one of my wife, Kathy's favorite parts of the trip
Uh-huh.
is the cooking class. She's a fantastic cook, but she always learns something about cooking in each of these countries and incorporates in her day-to-day cooking.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have Kathy write a cookbook about your past journeys, Tom. Maybe we should
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
we could do that. Interesting sidelight. During COVID, we had a weekly dinner with some friends from New York,
Uh-huh.
and it was a way to connect with people during COVID. And the head person has a strong history as a chef would send out a recipe. Everybody would do that, and then we'd eat it together
Wow.
Awesome.
by Zoom. And they did a cookbook from all those recipes that were done. So there's a history of putting together a cookbook. We could do that again.
I'm going to circle back to you on that because, as you know, we're going to start fundraising soon for the albino community you met in Tanzania. We're just putting a strategy together for that. So maybe a cookbook filled with recipes from around the world of our Nanda Journeys delegations. That might be soon to come.
Yeah, Kathy would be a good person on that. No question.
Awesome.
That'd be great. Yeah. And so after that day, we come together for dinner. It's a great opportunity for the professionals and those that are guests to share stories and exchange what happened throughout the day. This evening, we spend our final night in Bogota before we fly to Medellin. After breakfast in the morning, depending on when the flight's taking off, we might get a little bit of time to spend walking around the city. But this day, we fly to Medellin. and dinner tonight with the group. Let me ask you a question, Nicola.
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll get the question, so I'll try and see if I can answer it before we get to it. How long is the flight? How long of a day are we in the plane and all of that in terms of
Yeah,
going?
these are short flights. That's a really good question. So, quite different to the other groups that you've traveled on, Tom. For the most part, we do a lot of land transfers because there's a lot of opportunity to learn while you're traveling. But the Andes, the beautiful Andes Mountains, are on all sides, right? So there's like three fingers of the Andes. So you going up and over is really not an option. So flying over, and these flights are short, anything from an hour to an hour and a half. So beautiful way to see the country, especially with the mountain region. Obviously, you have the Rockies in Denver, Tom, which are also spectacular every time I fly into Denver. So there are three different flights that are included internally, getting us from point A to point B. So it's a nice way to see the country from the air. If, like me, you're obsessed with 30,000 foot pictures, I have a whole album. Beautiful way to see a country.
Absolutely. And so we come together for dinner tonight after our hour and a half flight. For those of you that wanted to ask a question, that final, and then we spend the evening in our hotel. The next day, we go off as a group to explore the city of Medellin. Tell us a little bit about what to expect on day 5.
Yeah, so Bogota being the capital, of course, of politics and finance and industry and everything, and you're going to learn a lot there. For me personally, Medellin is the heart. It's the heart of Colombia. It tells the stories, it tells the ugly stories, the beautiful stories, and the looking forward stories. So for me, Medellin is where your learning is going to be really the most profound. The Pablo Escobar story comes up here. The reason they have these beautiful cable cars, they don't have skiing in Medellin, but they do have this infrastructure of navigating of transport. So from an urbanization of a city that's had a lot of challenges, there's also a lot of learning here because they had crime, they had corruption. But one of the reasons for that is they're so ghettoized in these, little kind of slum type communities that are all up the side of the mountain. So these cable cars, you'll learn how it opened up life, an opportunity for work and education. And then you'll have this wonderful community experience in Moravia, where I'm really hoping that you meet Mama Chile, who I was meeting with. And she's kind of like the adopted mayor of this community. And Moravia is really where the Pablo Escobar story kind of started in terms of that. I will build a community, I will build hospitals. But then there's a whole other backstory to that, right? So nothing is free in this world, nothing comes for nothing, right? So you learn that story and how they've overcome great challenges in this area. What are they doing going forward? So from a mental health conversation, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of past history, there's a lot of loss of family members. So this is going to be a really profound learning day on many, many fronts. So this is going to be really very interesting day for everybody, guests and professionals alike.
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things is getting a chance to see the bright future that is ahead for a city like Medellin in the country of Colombia. That evening we have a free night, so you get a chance to explore a little bit, go out and have dinner on your own. But the following day, we actually get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into Pablo Escobar's history, the challenging history, and but also again, as Nicola had mentioned, the bright future. But this afternoon we have a professional engagement again. Tell us a little bit about, I know we're still planning it. Tell us a little bit about kind of what they might be expecting. I think a familiar face in that photo too. Obviously, this wasn't Colombia.
Yeah, this one wasn't in Colombia, but this is Tammy, can you remember where this one was taken? I don't know.
I believe this was Iceland.
Iceland,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And that was
It was
just a few
a
years ago,
community
Tammy.
health center, a
Right.
Mhm.
community mental health center in Iceland. Mhm.
Yeah, so as you can see that the professional engagements there, you're met with peers from a similar background to have this opportunity to come together. The morning was established so that everybody could do the Pablo Escobar tour, and I'm sure that conversation in the morning and that learning will inform some of the questions for the afternoon with
Hmm.
your peers. So again, we haven't finalized who that's going to be with yet, but it's going to be with people that are helping people from the past, and obviously there is also that challenge. It happens all over the world of age. Like
Mhm.
the people that are the older ones that were maybe the most profoundly impacted by the most recent past, they might not necessarily know how to ask for help. So I think this in Metagene, that is where I think your professional conversation and Tom, I'll ask you a little bit about, you've worked with us so many times and you know how we formulate the final professional meetings. Tell us a little bit about why we leave it loose and what benefit do you feel we gain from that? Because some people may be thinking, why do we not know who we're meeting with? Tell us a little bit about why we do that.
Well, I always try to get a variety of professional meetings, both public and private, and
Hmm.
meeting with professionals who obviously understand the culture and the country better than we do. And so, I always like a psychiatric hospital, an outpatient facility, meeting with
Hmm.
professionals, and so some combination of those.
Yeah.
I like to get some overall perspective,
Hmm.
from a country. So the government officials are somebody that's in a position to be able to explain the overall system in the country. And we actually have some good contacts here. The director of the Denver Children's Advocacy Center, who I worked with for years, is from Medellin, and
Hmm.
she has great contacts there. So we're still working with them on those contacts. And again, we try to identify the best combination that will give us the best picture of the country and where we can actually help the best too.
Yep. Hmm.
So that's what we try to do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Tammy, is there any, I know that I'm looking at this picture and that gentleman in the background looks like a modern day Viking. Um, so I can imagine Iceland is probably a pretty good guess. Any particular professional engagement that's really popped out to you over your X amount of years, like where you really felt like this brings to life, both my profession as well as the country that I'm visiting. Is there any particular experience that really jumps out to you?
Yes, what one that's coming to mind is a visit that, gosh, was it in Argentina, perhaps? Tom, you may have to help me. We visited a university where a number of us were on a panel speaking with psychologist students
Right,
who wanted to know about our work and
Mhm.
and get advice about career paths in psychology. And their enthusiasm was so striking. It
right,
was both an opportunity to reflect on our own work, but also just very, very encouraging that here were these really bright, enthusiastic young
right.
people who
Yeah, that
wanted
was
to enter the profession.
yeah, I think that was either Argentina or Chile. I'm not sure which.
Yes, it was sometime during that trip, but um, it uh, it was a piece of service that was very important to me because I know that at that stage of my career, it would have been really helpful and interesting to be able to
Mhm.
hear from
Awesome.
uh, later career people about their work. So that was really special. This photo was special too because this particular clinic served unhoused people,
Mhm.
and that was a large part of their client base was unhoused. And we learned a lot about how their services were integrated into other public services in the community to cooperate together to provide support and care for people. And you could
Very
tell that it was a very significant community space in that
Mhm.
yeah.
town. So
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and Iceland was one of the countries that really wanted our help. You
Mhm.
Yeah.
know, despite the fact it's pretty sophisticated in many areas, um, it's not a very impressive mental health system.
Hmm.
There was a year wait to see a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Um, and there are a lot of good people doing good work, but they have to patch together funding.
Mhm.
So it it needs a lot of work.
mhm.
Yeah.
And the people were very enthused about trying to get help and trying to get our advice for how they might be able to improve the system.
I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things, the takeaways for me from obviously we have a number of different professions that choose to travel internationally and meet with their peers. Your groups in particular, I think, are some of the most profound because you make connections and the learning and the sharing of knowledge and engaging and collaborating with each other to solve challenges that come up. I think of all of our focuses that we have within Nanda Journey's family, we haven't scratched the surface in understanding how many people you've helped through these exchanges. And that goes, and Tammy, I like how you said the opportunity to self-reflect and celebrate one's own success is sometimes very powerful as well. So I do believe we could spend a whole afternoon talking about each country and what programs were established, what learnings were provided, what new programs were established. It's just impossible for us to encapsulate all of that in this short conversation, but
Yeah.
for people listening, know that this group is so giving of their time, their expertise, and it makes a difference. That's the thing that I think really sits with me.
Yeah. If I could also just add that having traveled with Tom and other friends over the years, it's the cumulative experience that is also really
Mhm.
powerful. I do consider our travel companions friends, and we've
Mhm.
certainly been through many things together outside of our trips. But to be able to say, oh, remember when we were in Cambodia together and we, visited that site, and how it reminds me of such and such, and just ways that we can make connections between our experiences, trip after trip after trip. So I welcome other people to join us and find like-minded people who have similar interests in how psychology can make a difference around the world, and mental health care in general. Uh, so
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's an amazing opportunity, and that's the beauty of professional development while you're traveling is all those amazing opportunities. But we're only halfway through the journey, and I can see we're already getting a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to take the second half and speed it up a little bit. Our day 7 in Medellin, we actually get a chance to do a little bit more sightseeing, experiencing the culture, and getting a chance to have a beautiful lunch in the city. Tell us a little bit about day 7, Nicola.
So I will tell you that the gastroenterologist that traveled and did this day said it was their favorite day. So it might seem a little strange going exploring an area that grows flowers, but look at those displays. They're stunning. Again, one of the biggest industries within Colombia is their exporting of their flowers. And it's not only about growing flowers and it being part of their work, it's again part of their culture. So there's not much to be said other than gastroenterologist said it was amazing. I can't believe I didn't want to go. Some people are like, I don't think that sounds very interesting to me. But yeah, their favorite thing, I think the most pictures I had from that group were from this day. They loved it so much. And we're going to carve out some time as well to meet with a local mental health community organization that's working in this area. So a great day, honestly, for everybody here.
That's fantastic. Yes, and dinner on your own this evening, so that way
Mhm.
um restaurants that you've seen, you get a chance to experience them on your own or with the group. Even if you're traveling as a solo, there's always somebody to go to dinner with. So don't worry about necessarily having a free evening and being on your own because there's always something to do with
Exactly.
someone.
Yeah. And I know the question that might come up and people might not want to ask it is Medellin safe? It used to be one of the most dangerous cities in the world. It was. It's not now because tourism, people visiting, you know, it serves them so well. It creates jobs, it creates community, it's their future. So it's so safe. I traveled by myself. When I travel with a group, I spend time by myself so that I can safely say with absolute certainty, I felt really safe there. Of course, in any city, we have to be cognizant of the risks, but Colombia is so welcoming of people. It has its challenges like everybody else, but it's a great community to wander through.
Yeah, there's that old saying, to travel is to prove that everyone else is wrong about the world or something like that, to prove yourself wrong about your preconceived notions. So people
Yeah,
think that certain places are dangerous and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Many oftentimes travelers come back and said, I was totally wrong about that particular city. It's safe and welcoming and warm. And they'll find the same exact experience in Cartagena. On day 8, when we fly to the beautiful city of Cartagena, we get a chance to land. We check into our hotel, or maybe don't check in, but maybe drop our bags off, get comfortable, and then we head off on a city tour of Cartagena. Tell us a little bit about what to expect in Cartagena.
So now you're on the Caribbean side of Colombia. Cartagena has long served as a hub for people visiting. So its tourism is a lot more progressed and a lot more defined. But the historical context, these beautiful buildings, I love this picture on the top because you have the old historical center of Cartagena with its beautiful cathedrals, its cobblestone streets, and its multicolored houses. And then you have the backdrop of what I call Little Miami and the backdrop there. So it's a city of contrasts, right? But there's the old and the new, and the modern day. But the historical architecture, I think, your camera is not going to go unused in this particular city. It's a lot warmer as well, so completely different from the experience that you've had in the other cities. And you have the beautiful Caribbean Sea surrounding you as well. So completely different in feel. Some people say it doesn't feel like Colombia, but it is Colombia. But it's a beautiful part of the country with a lot of history and a lot of culture that we want to share with you. And I know the following day we have a beautiful experience where you're in the city and the guides here are just so passionate and knowledgeable. And one thing to share is it's a young generation of workforce. It's a young workforce because of its history, because of its challenges that it's had. So we've got to do some rum tasting, right? That would be very absent of us not to include that at some point. So yeah, it's a beautiful city with architecture around every corner.
Absolutely. And then on day 10 is, I believe, our final professional day of the journey. So we get a chance
Mhm.
to experience and engage with some of the mental health professionals here in Cartagena. Tell us a little bit. I know we're still planning it, but tell us a little bit about what to kind of expect on this particular day.
Yeah, well, the cultural diversity here is different. So you have the Afro-Caribbean kind of culture here. So one of the first free slave communities in South America established just outside of this area. So there's a whole different conversation to be had. So we'll probably go to a community program, or we're trying to also talk to the university here as well. So we'll probably have those two elements to learn from. And Tom, I know your wonderful connection is also making recommendations to us for who we might engage with. And then the guests are going to do a drum workshop. So again, the vibrancy of the Caribbean music here and the culture. The food is completely different in this area. So Kathy will be really happy in this area, Tom. And the drum workshop it's loud, it's fun, and it's a whole different experience.
Great.
Yeah. And then our final day in the city of Cartagena in the country of Colombia ends with what looks like an amazing fun day of snacks and food and a full day of touring and a farewell dinner. Tell us a little bit about our final day on this amazing journey.
Yeah, so the Palenque culture, that Afro-Caribbean culture I was talking about, the very first um, free slave village of South America was established here. So we're going to spend a whole day interacting and learning about that beautiful culture. Cooking demonstration, they make the most beautiful sweet treats. So they sell them at the market, and you'll learn about why that's a really important part of the economic independence of women as well. So Tom and Tammy, you've probably seen that interwoven throughout all of your journeys is we're constantly trying to support, workforce empowerment, especially for women. So you'll probably hear a little bit about that. And then super fun farewell dinner at a local restaurant. And those are times to talk about your cumulative memories, as you say, Tom, Tammy. Always a great way to end the journey, exchange your knowledge and how you're going to take what you've learned forward, but how you're going to continue to engage with the people that you've met. And I know both of you and all of your alumni are very much involved in different pockets of the world with different programs that have spoken to them and they've taken that forward.
Yeah, the farewell dinner is one of my favorite moments of any journey. It's just an opportunity. It's bittersweet. You're ready to sleep in your own bed, but at the same time, you're sad to say goodbye to those friends that you made along the way. So it's amazing how fast people learn how to airdrop on their iPhones photos of each other
Yes.
with
Yeah.
their farewell dinner.
Absolutely.
Those that don't know learn very, very quickly.
Mhm. Yeah.
The final day, we leave this beautiful country of Colombia, departing with our memories, but as we like to say at Nanda Journeys, leaving our footprints and
Mhm.
leaving our impact, which we're really excited about. And so this career enrichment and journey, like Nicola had mentioned, includes round trip airfare out of Miami. You have a guide in country, great accommodations, amazing experiences. You know, we plan everything for you. All you have to do is worry about having a good time and taking a lot of pictures and learning a lot of information on this. So to cover the final details, and then I'll pass it back to Nicola to cover some of the insurance information. Our journey departs February 25th to March 8th, 2026. 12 days, 11 nights. It's $5,999 per person. That includes airfare from Miami. If you aren't flying out of Miami, if you're flying from other parts of the country, our team here at Nanda Journeys is more than able to fly you out of other major gateways. Miami just being the most frequented one, flying into Bogota. If you are flying as a single or traveling as a single, there is this $12.99 single supplement. Our deposit due to hold your space is $500 per person, which is fully refundable up until September 28th, minus a $95 service charge. The reason I mention that is because we're already halfway full on this journey, so we're already filling up the itinerary and experience. And if you are interested in joining, we always recommend that you put your deposit down so that way you have your seat if you don't need it. But if you call us, the one thing that we hate to say is putting you on a wait list. So we'd love to just hold your seat and make the decision than for us to have to put you on a wait list. And then you have a QR code. You can scan that. It'll take you to our Journey website to be able to sign up and register there. All your payments, all your registration can be done on the Journey's website. So with that said, there's a lot of ways that they can add to and upgrade their experience. Nicola, can you tell us a little bit about, the ways they can add experiences as well as the journey protection?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this really short and sweet because we're just here for your questions. So if you want to go
Right.
early, stay longer, whatever you want to do, we're here to make sure that this experience aligns with you and for you. Insurance and things like that, we cover everything. So I'm going to skip that because I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk to Tom and Tammy about their reasons why. I want to ask them both, why do you keep coming back and why do you think it's had an impact on you professionally?
Okay, maybe I'll start. I think this is a wonderful way to have an impact on improving mental health around the world,
Mhm.
both from learning things that are done better in countries, providing help, and for those of us that are committed to that goal of improving mental health around the world, this is an excellent way to do that. And Nanda does a great job of supporting these trips and planning them out. So there's an opportunity to have professional context as well as the cultural context. So it's kind of a perfect combination.
Thank you, Tom. And Tammy, I'll invite the same question to you.
Sure. So, uh, if anyone is questioning or wondering about what their experience will be like, I can attest to the very high caliber of professionalism of Nanda Journeys. I have complete confidence every time I sign up for a Nanda trip that I am going to have a really meaningful time, that I will be very comfortable, that I will feel safe, and that anything unexpected that may come up, I will have support while I am on this journey. I have
Mhm.
complete confidence in Nanda, and I have found that the local partners that Nanda finds, they also think very, very highly of Nanda. And it's it is projected onto us as guests. When the local guide feels really good about Nanda, they really go the extra mile for us as Nanda visitors, and we've always had wonderful local guides. You could go with another travel company, and they could give you a wonderful tourist experience. But if you're looking for a professionally meaningful and personally meaningful experience, this really is the way to go.
Well, thank you, Tammy. We appreciate you both, and so joyful that you will be leading 2027. So, Tom, thank you for your leadership. It means the world to us, and everybody should jump on this opportunity to join Tom for his last hurrah, leading our wonderful delegates. And Tammy, thank you for saying yes to what looks forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank
It's
you.
been a wonderful experience, and I really enjoyed connecting with you and everybody in the group, and I'll cherish that.
We're not going to let you get away. We're still going to stay friends and we'll still be connected. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate everybody. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Tom and Tammy. And thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you on the next Nanda Journeys webinar, but more importantly, we look forward to seeing you in Colombia in February. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mm.